The year was 1984. Bispberg, a quiet little village in central Sweden, it's nestled near the town of Säter, was the kind of place where nothing exciting ever happened. And real quick, I'm from New Jersey, not Sweden, so some of my pronunciations may be off. But with that said, let's get back. So this town was surrounded by forested hills with a nearby mountain known as Bispberg, a prominent peak that locals could spot from miles away. On the night in question, a couple of residents were heading home after a long day. It was late, well past 10 p.m., and the sky was clear with a bright scattering of stars. But as they approached the base of Bispberg, something in the sky caught their attention. At first, they thought it might be an aircraft, maybe even a plane, or a helicopter. But this thing wasn't moving like any aircraft they'd ever seen. It was different. It was late, well past 10 p.m., when the two men began their drive home. They'd spent the evening visiting a family in a neighborhood in town, and the winding road back to Bispberg was familiar, almost comforting. The car's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the tall evergreens that lined the road. The hum of the engine and the crunch of gravel beneath the tires created a soothing rhythm, the kind that lulls you into a sense of calm. But that calm was about to be shattered. As the car rounded a curve, one of the men glanced out of the passenger window. His eyes caught something. A light. Faint at first, hovering just above the silhouette of Bispberg. He squinted, trying to make sense of it. A star? A plane? But as the car continued, the light grew clearer. It wasn't stationary. It was moving, smoothly, deliberately even, as if it was searching for something. "Do you see that?" he asked, his voice low, kind of with unease. The driver slowed the car, and both men leaned forward. Their eyes were fixed on the light. It was brighter now, pulsating rhythmically, shifting from orange to yellow to pale, almost a silvery white. It cast an eerie glow across the treetops, illuminating the jagged edges of the mountain in a way that felt really unnatural. Unable to ignore the strange sight, the driver eased the car onto the gravel shoulder and killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. No hum of the engine, no crunch of tires, just the faint rustle of the wind and the distant call of an owl. The two men stepped out of the car, and the cold night air started biting their skin. The forest around them seemed unnaturally quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. They stood there, staring up at the light, which now appeared to be hovering just above the peak of Bispberg. The object was larger than they realized, and it was disc-shaped, with a metallic sheen that reflected the moonlight. Its surface was smooth, almost too perfect, with no visible seams or rivets. The light it emitted wasn't harsh or blinding. Instead, it just bathed the trees and rocks below with an otherworldly glow, casting long, flickering shadows that danced across the mountain slopes. As the men watched, the object began to move. It glided down from the peak, with its descent impossibly smooth, as if it were floating on a cushion of air. The light grew brighter as it approached, illuminating the tops of the evergreens and casting light on their branches and illuminating the trees themselves. One of the men took an unconscious step back. His breath was visible in the cold night air. He later described the feeling as suffocating, not from fear, no, but from the weight of the silence. The object didn't make a sound, no hum, no engine noise, nothing. Just an oppressive stillness that made the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. The craft stopped just above the treetops, its light dimming slightly as it hovered in place. For a moment, it felt like time itself had stopped. Then, without warning, the object shifted direction, gliding toward them. As it drew nearer, the details of the craft became clearer. Its surface seemed almost liquid, rippling faintly under the light. The glow from the object lit up the gravel road, the men's car, and their faces, casting them in a golden type of hue. One of the men later said that he felt like he was being watched. Not in the way you might feel under someone's gaze when someone's just looking at you, but as if the craft itself was sentient, observing them with some sort of intelligence he couldn't really comprehend. The craft hovered there for what felt to them like an eternity. Its light was pulsing softly before it began to rise. Slowly, it started to rise at first, but then faster. And then, in a flash, it shot upward into the sky, and it disappeared in an instant. The silence came back, returning heavier now. The two men were standing there, unable to move, damn near rooted to the spot as their breath fogged the cold air. The next morning, the men shared their story with a few neighbors, who were quick to point out that they too had seen strange lights in the sky the night before. Some described glowing orbs that hovered over the mountain, while others spoke of lights that darted back and forth, moving too fast to be anything man-made. But the most chilling discovery came a day later. Near the base of Bispberg, a hiker stumbled across a patch of ground where the vegetation had been burned away. The trees were charred and blackened, their branches brittle and warped. The soil itself was hard and compacted, as if someone heavy or something heavy had pressed down on it. There was no evidence of a fire spreading, just one perfectly circular patch of destruction left behind by whatever it was. And you know what it was. The Bispberg Incident faded into local legend, a story that was told by those who dared to drive near the mountain after dark, and no official explanation was ever given. The witnesses, although they were reluctant to talk about their experiences, never wavered in their account of what they saw. What visited Bispberg that night? Was it a military experiment gone wrong? Was it a natural phenomenon? Or was it something that's still far beyond our understanding? We'll never know. Anyway, that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks for joining me, Matty B, on this journey into the unknown. Let me know what you think about the Bispberg incident in the comments, and as always, stay curious, stay skeptical, stay humble, and keep asking questions. Until next time, take care.